Welcome back to the Nutrition Digest podcast, your go-to for real talk from registered dietitians. We're your hosts, Tara, Alicia, and Summer, and we are here to help you cut through the wellness noise with practical, evidence-based info. Today, we're diving into a hot topic trifecta, fear-mongering and misinformation around protein powders and heavy metals. I know you've been seeing the headlines. The rise of, quote, natural GLP-1 mimic supplements. I'm sure you're being advertised those all over Instagram and social media right now. And the caffeine-cortisol controversy that's making people question their morning coffee, which is just so sad for all of us coffee lovers out there. We're here to bust some myths, empower you with the actual science, and help you make informed decisions about what you're putting into your body.
We'll kick it off with this protein powder panic, which I have had at least one client, if not more, a day in the last 4 days ask me about should they be stopping their protein powder because of all that they're seeing in the news, which is scary when they're listening to their morning news and they're being told to stop having the protein powder. So let's talk about this big fear bomb. And all of the headlines have been saying that the protein powders might contain toxic levels of lead and cadmium. This stems from the 2024-2025 Clean Label Project report that found nearly half of tested protein powders exceeded California Prop 65's daily limit for lead, arsenic, cadmium, and mercury. So it's leaving a lot of people questioning kind of like, oh my gosh, should I be not having protein powder? People are asking like, who am I trusting in terms of the information? Is the news throwing lies at me? What is going on? I think a lot of people are feeling very unsettled. And that's the vibe that I'm getting, especially after coming back from a conference where we were surrounded by protein powders the whole time. It's so funny because a bunch of the vendors are currently posting on social media about their unhappiness. So I want to put things into context for a lot of people. So the California Prop 65 that they're using as a threshold for the contaminants level is extremely conservative. So they're looking at 0.5 micrograms a day for lead, for example. It's a very, very low threshold. To put things into context, the FDA, so the national regulating body, their interim limit is a little bit more lenient. It's 12.5 micrograms per day, which is 25 times higher than the California Prop 65 threshold. And so that is their threshold for what is considered safe for human consumption on a daily basis. If we look at other parts of the world in terms of their cutoffs for food products, we look at the EU, which I think for a lot of us, we see EU as like the gold standard for food regulation, for additive regulation, all of that. So their cutoff for food supplements and food products in general is 3 micrograms per day, which is still 6 times higher than the Prop 65 threshold. So you need to consume multiple scoops daily for years of contaminated powders to approach the pure toxicity, or even to kind of like even hit some of these levels that have been set by these massive regulatory bodies.
So one of the things that you may have seen highlighted in some of the articles that are talking about lead and other toxins in your protein powders is that there is actually a difference between the type of protein powder that you're consuming and the likelihood that it's going to have higher amounts of lead in the powder. So there's a difference between whey protein powder versus plant-based protein powders. And here's what the research says. So the report by the Clean Label Project tested multiple sources of protein powder products from a bunch of different top brands. And what they found was that plant-based protein powders on average contained 3 times more lead than whey-based protein powders. And in a separate investigation by Consumer Reports, 23 popular powders / shakes, plant-based options averaged 9 times more lead than the dairy or whey products and about twice as much as beef-based powders. So what's the deal with that and why is that the case? So whey protein typically comes from dairy sources like cow's milk, And it's often from countries with stronger regulatory frameworks for feed, soil, and environmental contaminants for these animals and processing. The animal biology of dairy may filter out some of the heavy metal lead compared to plants that grow directly in the soils, which might be contaminated with lead. So there's kind of like that natural filtration that is occurring in the actual animal's body. Smaller ingredient lists and fewer plant sources mean less variability in raw material risk as well. So if we're looking at like rice, pea, and hemp protein sources, so why do these plant-based protein sources often show higher contaminants? So plants absorb minerals and metals directly from the soil and the water that they need to live in and to grow. So rice protein, pea protein, hemp protein, and soy protein are especially prone to being exposed to and absorbing these toxic heavy metals. Many plant protein ingredients are sourced globally from areas with less strict environmental regulation or higher soil contamination as well. So the actual area that the plants are growing in and are harvested from matters in terms of like their location in the world. Plus, flavoring and processing can be a factor as well. So, chocolate flavored powders were found to have significantly higher lead or cadmium than vanilla flavored versions, which is such a bummer because chocolate's my favorite.
Me too. So, what do the numbers mean for you? Most studies conclude that typical consumption of even contaminated powders did not elevate adult blood lead levels above CDC guidelines. For example, one analysis found even 3 servings a day of certain powders still kept blood lead levels under the 5 microgram a day guidelines. However, the cumulative exposure over months and years really does matter, especially if you use the same product daily, have multiple servings, dietary reliance on only protein powder, or are in vulnerable groups such as pregnant, children, or high training loads. And some practical recommendations for you if you are concerned about the lead levels in your protein. If you do consume protein powder daily, lean towards whey or animal-based options when your dietary pattern allows, especially if contamination concerns you. Also, if you're plant-based and must use plant protein powders, choose brands with independent third-party testing such as NSF, Inform Sport, or Consumer Lab. Also, rotate brands and sources to avoid consistent exposure from one batch. Consider whole food proteins instead. Stay aware of serving sizes. Some mass gainer protein powders have huge servings and thereby more potential for contamination by volume. So do you need to panic? Not really. But chronic exposure over time can add up, especially if protein powders are a daily staple. So, as I mentioned, look for NSF certified for sport, Inform Sport, or USP verified seals. Have simpler flavors, vanilla over chocolate. It may contain fewer contaminants. Rotate brands and protein types such as whey, egg, casein, collagen, or blended plant-based proteins. But ultimately, you don't need to quit protein powders. Just choose wisely, do your research, and use them as part of a broader nutrition strategy. The truth is, the amount of lead is not that high, and it's a big, big, scary thing that's out right now. But the truth of the matter is, it's not that big of a deal.
Mm-hmm. I feel like if they went and tested other products, they would find a lot more. They're just particularly picking up protein powders because it has a hot seat. And this is the second time they did this study because they did it back in 2023. And I think it was like a similar, or like maybe it was a little bit less because it was a smaller body of products that were available. So they chose a more broad spectrum product base. And so, yeah, they're getting more results from it.
I think this just solidifies what I've been saying, and probably you guys have also been saying for ages now, which is protein powder is a supplement. It's a tool. It shouldn't be where you get all of your protein from. It's not something that you should be adding to every single meal or having multiple times a day. It's something that you lean on when you need to if you're trying to hit your protein targets. But in an ideal world, you're getting most of your protein, if not all, from whole food sources. And sometimes that takes a little bit of strategizing and a little bit of extra thought. But for the most part, it's relatively safe to be consuming a normal serving size of protein powder regularly. But if you're extra concerned about it, just make sure that you're sourcing it from a third-party tested good source.
You mean I shouldn't do the protein powder shake cleanse that everyone wants to do on the internet? I don't understand, Tara and Summer. Why not?
Sounds so gross.
No thanks.
I've never even heard of a protein shake cleanse.
So
how's that even
I don't
cleanse?
know, have you guys heard of isogenics? Not picking on isogenics, but there is kind of like similar companies that you just basically live off shakes. And there's a certain cleanse or detox segment where you're having like multiple shakes a day, or maybe you're having one meal and then just shakes the rest of the day. And I feel like there's a few other companies that are kind of similar. So I think this is kind of like recognizing that's like, maybe we shouldn't be doing things like that where we're cutting out real meals and we're just relying on powders.
Like Slim Fast.
Slim Fast, yeah.
Yeah, like Slim Fast.
It's just rebranded Slim Fast.
Totally. But it's interesting that we're kind of shifting gears talking about weight loss, because that's the next topic that we're going to be talking about, which is the latest wellness weight loss fad, which I know that we have a whole episode on GLP-1s. So if you missed that, go back, check it out. But now the thing is, everyone's like, oh, you don't want to go on GLP-1s? Just get a natural GLP-1 supplement. And they're nature's Ozempic. They're all over TikTok. They're all over Instagram. I know that I'm even getting the ads now, which is making me so mad because my phone is listening to me talking to clients about it. And it's now trying to think that I want to take them, which I definitely do not want to. So GLP-1, they are a medical tool for managing diabetes and for weight loss. These supplement companies are now trying to throw together different herbs and fibers and claiming they mimic the effects. So common ingredients that we see in these supplements, and you've probably heard of some of these like ingredients before, my listeners. I know some of you are supplementing with it. So I'm not calling you out, but you might know the ingredients. So berberine is one, curcumin, resveratrol. So that's the active antioxidant in red wine, apple cider vinegar, which we've gone to great lengths to debunk in other episodes, green tea extract, chromium, which is supposedly supposed to help our blood sugars magically, inulin or different fibers, bitter melon, and ginseng, which is supposed to help the mental alertness.
Wait, I have a quick question. So does that mean if I go on a purely red wine diet, I'm going to lose weight?
Wow. I don't know if I would recommend that, but I think that you have to drink a lot of red wine to get resveratrol. But
also, you can just get it from grapes, like regular eating.
Just go in an all grape, all wine diet. There we go. Solution. Natural Ozempic.
I'm going to feel great.
You won't have gut rot at all.
No. Yeah.
So
you don't need to, nurture the liver or anything. Just pour alcohol on it, and
it kills germs, right?
Sanitizes your insides, kills all the gut microflora,
Okay, that is not a fact. Not true. Not true.
No, not at all.
We are not encouraging the red wine diet, just to be clear.
No, and we'll probably eventually have an episode talking about alcohol.
We should.
Eventually. Yeah. It's on the list. So if people want to hear more about alcohol, they should just let us know. Let us know in our DMs. Slide in there. Let us know.
Yep.
But anyways, going back to these ingredients. So moral of the story, the claims are that these influence blood sugar, influence appetite, insulin sensitivity, but they are not GLP-1 drugs. They are not regulated. And most of these products have not actually gone through FDA testing. We should definitely have an episode on like how FDA testing works in terms of supplement regulation, because usually it's voluntary or they're randomly selected. So we have to be careful about the safety of some of these supplements.
So again, just to say that one more time for those in the back, these are not actual GLP-1s.
No.
These are supplements that are claiming to have effects similar to GLP-1s. So I have been asked about these left, right, and center. I am getting all the advertisements as well. But just like GLP-1s can have some side effects, you can also have side effects from these supplements as well. So
If not, sometimes worse side effects from some of these supplements.
absolutely. So some of them include GI upset, bloating, diarrhea, drug interactions, especially berberine and ginseng. There's misleading claims which lead people to delay or avoid evidence-based treatment. Also, the doses aren't standardized, and they're often part of a stacked supplement group or a group of several different pills that you have to take with poor transparency. So you don't actually know what you're taking and why.
Proprietary blend.
Yes, exactly. A proprietary blend. And this is where it gets dangerous. Marketing these as Ozempic in a bottle makes people think that they'll get the same results without the same medical oversight. It's very risky and potentially very, very dangerous. So what we recommend is to be skeptical of supplement stacks with no third-party testing. Again, we say it in almost every episode. Any supplement that you're looking to take, just pop it into a Google search and see, is this product third-party tested? I tell every single one of my clients to do that. Watch for buzzwords like boost GLP-1 naturally without substance, and focus instead on real strategies that support metabolic health, like resistance training, having adequate protein, fiber, blood sugar balance, and an overall nutritious diet, a nutrient-dense food and meal plan that works for you to support your gut.
Be a dietitian. Get personalized help.
If you have any
Shameless
questions,
plug.
and yes, if you have any questions, reach out to a dietitian. We can help you with this. This is what we do. So we can absolutely help you get on the track of healthier eating or making sure your foods are nutrient dense and support your body without having to lean on miracle drugs or miracle supplements that claim to do what an FDA product actually does.
Let's shift gears and talk about our next topic, which is one that is near and dear to my heart because everybody knows that I love my coffee. So let's talk about, cheers. Let's talk about coffee and cortisol. We've talked about cortisol multiple times on this podcast because it's a topic that we get asked about a lot. And there's a lot of questions about caffeine and cortisol, and should I be drinking coffee, and is coffee bad for me? Is caffeine bad for me? Should I be cutting out my coffee? I hear a lot of people will just tell me straight up, well, I'm trying to be healthier. I stopped drinking caffeine. And my response is usually like, really? Tell me more about that, because most people don't need to. So let's talk a little bit about the science here and the facts. So caffeine and cortisol, this one's been all over reels and stories. Your morning coffee is spiking your cortisol and ruining your hormones. So let's break this down. Let's clarify this a little bit and get to the facts. So caffeine does temporarily increase your cortisol levels, especially if you are not a habitual user of caffeine. So if you are not like us, and you rarely drink any caffeine, you don't have a coffee habit at all, it's not part of your morning routine, then it's more likely to give you a little bit of a boost in your cortisol, particularly in the morning. In habitual caffeine users, that response is actually blunted. So I don't have to worry about it because I drink a lot of coffee and it is part of my routine. We also know that cortisol naturally peaks about 30 to 60 minutes after you wake up in the morning. So coffee just tends to overlap with that natural increase in cortisol that occurs. There's no evidence that shows that there is long-term harm that can occur to your health from caffeine in the morning and your morning cortisol being increased from that caffeine if you are an otherwise healthy person. So I'm just going to repeat that. No evidence shows that there is long-term health harm from caffeine and morning cortisol in otherwise healthy people. So if you're generally healthy, you can have that cup of coffee in the morning and you don't have to worry about it. It's also important to ask, what is the alternative for coffee? So for some people, they're replacing that joyful reason for getting up in the morning with a stressful ritual, with guilt, with sugary energy drinks instead of their morning coffee because they think that that's a better alternative. So you have to kind of weigh out the cost benefit analysis here. If you're a person who tends to have a lot of anxiety, you're very high stress, you have issues with that in the morning. I know some individuals who have like IBS, for example, sometimes in the morning it's really, really sensitive. So having caffeine combined with already natural anxiety in the morning and then higher cortisol levels can be kind of like the perfect storm. So for that individual, they might want to be a little more cautious about their consumption. And that is something that needs to be taken on a case by case basis. If you don't struggle with any of those issues, if you just love to have a morning cup of coffee, then have your morning cup of coffee. It's not harming you in any kind of way. You don't have to deprive yourself of joy because you saw a reel or saw a video on TikTok that told you that caffeine is spiking your cortisol and destroying your hormones. That's not what's happening. So let's talk also about performance benefits that we can get from caffeine. So we talked in a previous podcast about how creatine is one of the most well-researched performance-enhancing supplements. Caffeine is also very well-researched when it comes to performance benefits. So caffeine is well researched for improving endurance, for improving focus, reaction time, and even strength output. So another reason I love having that cup of coffee in the morning is because I'm going straight to the gym and I want those benefits when I'm doing my workout. A safe dose of caffeine is about 3 to 6 milligrams per kilogram body weight. So do the math, see what that means for you, and then you can kind of see how much caffeine you're getting in your morning routine and if it's more than you need or if it's less than you ideally want to aim for. But that's what you should be aiming for pre-exercise if you want those performance benefits. So, for example, one shot of espresso contains about 64 milligrams of caffeine. So if a person weighs about 140 pounds, this is about 1 milligram per kilogram of body weight. So it's actually below what the safe dose would be. So you could have maybe 2 shots of espresso, if you weigh 140 pounds. And also for reference, if you're just drinking a classic cup of drip coffee, an 8-ounce cup of coffee has between 95 and 165 milligrams of caffeine. There's a big variance there because all coffee's a little bit different. Some's a little bit stronger than others. So you're anywhere between there. Sources of caffeine, there's a lot of different sources. Coffee, obviously, matcha, different types of tea. Pre-workouts often have caffeine. Some gels have caffeine as well, which can be nice if you're feeling sluggish in the middle of a workout. You can pop a caffeinated gel, give you a little bit of a boost there. You just want to make sure that you're aware of the different sources of caffeine that you're consuming because they can stack and overlap, and pretty soon you've overdone it and you're not feeling too good. Because I think most of us have been there before where we've had a little too much caffeine and we don't feel awesome. Side story, I actually had some cold brew. I was on a video shoot because I teach courses for this company and nutrition courses. It's really fun. But you need coffee when you're on these shoots. They're like all day long. You're talking all day. And they had cold brew and I just didn't think anything of it. So I poured myself a nice big glass of this cold brew and I was sipping on it. And I left and I was actually going to go do a workout afterwards. And I felt horrible. I was like nauseous. I was sweaty. I was anxious. I felt horrible. And I realized because they gave me the leftover to bring home and there was an actual warning on the thing that was like, this contains an extremely insane amount of caffeine. So anyway, I felt horrible. Read the labels, be mindful of your consumption because that sucked.
That's awful.
I've
Oh my
accidentally
gosh.
done the stacking before. I remember I was helping with this event and it was like I had my morning coffee, then they gave me coffee when I arrived, and then they gave us caffeinated chocolate because they have the awake chocolate. And then I didn't realize that the Cliff Bar, the Builder's Bar, they now have the caffeinated ones. I didn't realize that. And I just remember having like the worst stomach ache of life. And I was like, I cannot eat anything. It feels like my insides are like gonna curl up and die.
Yeah. Interestingly, I find that this happens with fiber now too, because so many products are adding additional, like crazy amounts of fiber
Mm-hmm.
because of the whole net carbs thing. And it's really easy to eat like insane amounts of fiber if you're eating a lot of packaged foods. And that happens to a lot of people. And they're like, why do I feel like I swallowed rocks? And it's like, well, you had 70 grams of fiber today. So watch what you eat. To take it home with the coffee thing, you don't need to quit coffee unless you have a caffeine sensitivity. If you have insomnia or anxiety or gut issues or some other specific reason that caffeine just doesn't work well with your body, there are genetics at play there as well. So know your body, know what works best for you. If you're a person who tolerates caffeine well, you don't necessarily need to cut it out for any reason, and certainly not because of your cortisol levels. You can try delaying your first cup of coffee by 60 to 90 minutes if you're curious about syncing it with your circadian rhythm. So if you just delay it a little bit, that works well for some people. But long story short, don't let social media fear-mongering guilt you into tossing your oat milk latte, or for me, your cappuccino, or whatever it is that brings you joy. Try to come to it with a logical perspective, and make a decision on your own.
I would miss out on all my collagen, my creatine, and my fiber that I put in my morning coffee.
What else do you put in your morning coffee?
Everything. My first meal.
Wine.
No. Red wine.
Yeah, got to get the resveratrol. So,
So to wrap up what we covered today, we talked a little bit about protein powders, which are safe when chosen wisely. Don't panic, just get picky. And remember third-party testing. Natural GLP-1s, which are exciting science, but risky marketing. They are not Ozempic or Wegovy or Zepbound or anything else. Caffeine, yes, it affects cortisol, but the dose makes the difference. Don't ditch your daily cup unless there's a reason. And if you're like Tara, that is the first thing she does in the morning before she does anything else. So I think, Tara, especially, you'd be pretty sad if you didn't have that morning cup. So always come back to the basics: quality food, smart movement, adequate sleep, and informed choices. You don't need to fall for the fear or the hype. Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to check us out on Instagram or send us your questions via email. Have a great day.
Have a good one.